Hey folks, it's been a few weeks since I made a video. I've just been way too bogged down by all of my work at school, but I'm hoping that in the next week or two I'll have a couple of hours every week or so to post some new stuff. Um, so look forward to that. And yeah, okay. So I want to share a lot of new ideas that are beginning to emerge with my own studies, and basically share with you like my thesis and all this other stuff. If you're interested in listening, of course, debate and discussion is very much welcome to explore this and understand it. So yeah, that is the main point of making this video, to let you guys know I haven't died, and I would still like to speak with you, whoever you are out there. But okay, so I think I'm going to start right here with this video and talk a little bit about the guy I'm reading called Manuel de Landa. He is a sociologist and a philosopher, and I've mentioned him in my previous videos. But what he and this other philosopher named Deleuze, I think that's how you pronounce it, they've talked about. They've tried to create, and now these guys aren't contemporaries per se. Delanda is a modern day guy. Deleuze died in the 90s. He was an old dude, old philosopher guy. I think he's regarded as a postmodernist, but I'm not sure. At any rate, lingo aside, what they're trying to do is explore this idea that we have to start thinking in a nonlinear point of view. In other words, the actual processes that make up life, that make up ideas and societies, and just the natural processes of life are decentralized. They're messy, and they're very flowing and fluxing, and the relationship between things is an important aspect, something that's often neglected. And Delanda has kind of brought this up, saying, look, the hard sciences can learn from this, because the way things are constructed is not in a summative way, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. A house isn't made simply from adding wood and nails and windows and doors together. There's a structural thing. It's the way things are structured and the way things relate and behave to each other. And that process, the space between things, how they relate, does require us to think a little bit differently, although perhaps very intuitively, naturally, about the world. And if we see the things like this, then suddenly societies make more sense, and perhaps, at least in my field, and in perhaps many other fields such as philosophy, and eventually, hopefully, hard sciences can kind of take that and be like, this is interesting. This stuff is very messy, it's complex, and because of that, it's hard to study. It's much easier to do, as we have been doing, to kind of follow things in a linear point of view, to kind of see the directionalities. You know, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. I mean, even Darwinian evolution and I say Darwinian evolution, I know people don't like to use that term, but when Darwin was thinking of evolution, his contemporaries and the people who followed after him shortly after saw evolution in a very linear perspective. Survival of the fittest, what societies were seen as, for instance, social Darwinism, where societies less or more advanced depending on if they're being progressive and industrial. So therefore Western societies were seen as the most developed because they were the most successful at being industrial. This sort of thing isn't necessarily true at all, and in fact it's been heavily criticized by modern thinkers and postmodern thinkers and all that. But so we have these very linear models that we're always using, even in science, and even in philosophy. We have very linear constructs, like logic is this, truth is this. I mean, logic itself is zeros and ones, zeros and ones. What we need to do is balance that very sharp, very rigid mental construct that we're using to think about ourselves in the world, and soften it a little bit. But the problem with thinking of alternatives, messy alternatives, organic, complex, interacting processes where things are fluxes and flows and interdynamic variables, all that, it's very difficult to navigate it without a more simple map. So, in other words, this stuff has always been here. Life has always been a messy, interdependent process, but our ideas and the way we're thinking has had to evolve over time from linear models, linear constructs, linear ideas, to more nonlinear, complex, networked, flowing understanding. And when that happens, suddenly it's a little bit more difficult to get stuck in a rational thinking process, because suddenly it requires you to come down to the moment, to see the relationship between yourself and other things, and see how you're part of this whole process. It brings you back down into the world, and perhaps a good way, and in a very integral way, a very integrated, flowing way. It sort of creates like an ecosphere. It makes our ideas more organic instead of being so sticky and rigid. So from a Buddhist perspective, at least, this is very positive, because if my ideas are more organic and natural and resemble the flow of streams and rivers and things like that, if they're more harmonic with the world that I am in, instead of being rigid and trying to apply what should be into what is, if my thoughts are already a part of what is, then there's much more peace there. And I think, at least with the sciences, if these ideas begin to flourish, these non-linear evolutionary ideas begin to flourish, then perhaps our own ideas and our own concepts and our own social sciences will better reflect human nature, better reflect the nature itself, and better understand relationship and complex processes, the process that we're only beginning to understand. Many older theories have been are argued for being too simplistic, too reductionist, missing the complex messiness of it all. But in return, postmodernists, for the most part, have just broken down the old models of thinking and trying to understand, and said, look, there is no ultimate meaning. It's not that simple. And maybe it isn't that simple, but perhaps instead of trying to create some kind of simple model that has everything, perhaps we can have an equally dynamic model and process that's organic too, by changing the way we think. We're always trying to change stuff out there, but perhaps we just gotta change our attitude and change the way we think about stuff, and then things will begin to make a lot more sense, or at least we'll be able to navigate the world a little better, the world of ideas. So this is what Delando is trying to do with sociology and philosophy and his various other fields he's studying, and Deleuze is trying to do the same sort of thing. And this all brings, of course, to mind the shunyata. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but it's a Buddhist concept for interdependence, the flux and flow. No, there is nothing that is inherent. All things are only here because they're in relation to other things. And I think a great metaphor, the human being is like a whirlwind, a storm, a hurricane. So many different elements need to come together to create this one thing. It can't exist without anything else, without this whole process through time. And then once it is created, it's not just a byproduct. The storm itself gives something back. It becomes an actor, a creator, and it comes for a while, and then it dissipates, and it leaves. And so all things are in flux and a flow. And that is samsara anyway. It's just the movement, the interdynamics, the flow, the never still point of all existence. The only thing that is still is emptiness. That is that which is beyond. And this is sort of an abstract term. But I think it fits very well with these sort of new ideas. And I feel like Delanda and Deleuze and nonlinear philosophy, just organic philosophy, just changing the way we think, these ideas are all very much related to very ancient Buddhist concepts of interconnection, interdependence, and emptiness. And I think there's a lot of room there to create a new philosophy, a philosophy that integrates spirituality, transcendence, the flux and flow of life. We're in for an interesting century, and I'm going to end the video now because it's about to cut off. Thanks for listening.